Here we go.
He moved the wrong knight.
Ratty. Yeah.
He should have gone Lawrence's knight c3.
Lawrence Trent, yeah. Once everyone's seen that video course, I'm sure knight c3 will become much more popular, but this one may be a sensible approach right now as well. We've seen this from Magnus before in this tournament. Now the white c-pawn will push forward to put some pressure on the black centre. And better late than never, the knight does come out as well. White's knights occupying nice squares. And, OK, interesting option there by Pragg. We might see a trade of pawns now in the centre.
Yeah, he might trade pawns. He might repeat what he did against, I think it was Duda. He pushed his queen's pawn two squares forward. Two squares.
That's the one.
There we go. You were right, Jovanka. That moves on the board. And now there's a lot of tension in the centre. It just depends who breaks that tension. We talked about the isolated queen's pawn, Simon, in the last game. We could well see something similar this time.
Yeah, I mean, Pragg's got to do something drastic here, really, to get some chances. A totally symmetrical position on the board, but that always should favour the person with the move, which is Magnus. And it's really hard to know what pawns exchange what pawns here if you're not used to the position. But obviously, both of these players are very used to what's happening here. I mean, talking about chessboard courses, Lawrence Trent's just brought out his one knight c3 course. Go and check it out. And I remember a course I did recently, Mikhail Tao's best games. He actually got this position as well, and there was some little move with a3 that he played. But OK, we'll have an exchange and clarification.
Yeah, there were two strategies in the last position. Either you continue playing the waiting game and kind of keeping the complete symmetry, or you trade off and you bring your bishop out. And this one actually... Wait, let me just recall. With that last knight move, I think we've gone differently. But if Magnus had captured a pawn in the centre with his own pawn, that was a complete replica of the time Praggnanandhaa beat Magnus Carlsen 2 months ago. So Magnus, he's clearly studied that game and he's chosen something different. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jovanka, but earlier if he'd played e takes d4 rather than knight takes d4. So this is different now, but it was the same first few moves as that infamous clash between these two when Praggnanandhaa won. And now it's actually going into something very similar to the last game. Same pawn structure, but now Praggnanandhaa is black rather than white. Look at that isolated pawn in the centre of the board. Praggnanandhaa played against the isolated pawn last time. Maybe he was so impressed by what Magnus did against him, by Magnus's win, that now he's taken on the same pawn structure himself. So, OK, interesting dynamic decision there.
And I'm just looking at this position, I'm thinking this is very similar to an opening that I could find with colours reversed, the Carlsen Panov Botvinnik. This is almost identical to...
Didn't you have this kind of thing against David, actually, with the black pieces?
I've had this type of position many times against David.
Yeah, I think I recall some...
Also with colours reversed as well, because there was a time we were playing each other quite frequently and he would throw everything against... But he was very young. And I would get these terrible positions, but, you know...
Yeah, and I've had this exact position myself, I've got to say, from the white side a couple of years ago in some rapid tournaments. And, OK, here we go. The bishop stepping forward to attack this white knight. Magnus is about to force that bishop to make a decision. He was about to click his pawn, harry the h-pawn, click it one square forward.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Decision.
That's a very interesting decision, because I would have thought it was a lot more thematic to actually drop the light squared bishop back and just keep the kind of pawn structure a little bit more flexible on the right side, because it might not be ideal to push Harry. It might be better to push Gary one square forward. I kind of call that kind of not like zigzag formation, the wall. When I set it up with the black pieces, I love it. I'm like, yeah, break that one down if you can.
I think the first thing, though, is to break this pin, and Magnus is trying to ask this light square bishop to either capture the white knight, a trade which most likely is fine for white, or that the black light square bishop is going to have to take a step back, and then Magnus can set up a very well-known motif. So, yeah, this one is coming now, Jovanka. The white bishop is going to retreat and break the pressure along this diagonal. There we go. So a combination of the two plans you mentioned there, and this is still very well-known territory. And white has a couple of ideas in mind, purely to do with trading off pieces, because the isolated pawn favours white if it gets down to an endgame.
And this is a must-win situation for Praggnanandhaa. Let's just bring up the results so far. In all the matches, Magnus has won both of the first 2 games. So Pragg has to win this one and the next one to take it to tie-breaks. In the match between Duda and Mamadjarov, Duda is still up by 1 point. They are now playing game 3 as well. And Liamle, he was able to win game 2 against Erik Hansen. He is up by 1 point. And Anish Giri and Jordan van Vriest, 2 draws. They are tied, now playing game 3. And we do have another move.
We do have another move, and very sensible by Pragg. He brings his rook to a slightly more centralised square. That's an open file once the knights get out the way. And also just creating a square for the black dark square bishop to go back and hide on, potentially. And yeah, this is the strategy that I was mentioning. This is very well known. Magnus trying to force the light squared bishops off the board. You have to trade pieces before black gets ready to attack you. And it's inevitable now. Pragg's light squared bishop is going to get traded. And it's going to get captured by this white knight sitting on the edge of the board. It's an interesting decision there, just kind of stepping back rather than trading bishop for bishop. He's gone for a bishop for knight trade.
Yeah, it's one of those, it's the isolated pawn, isn't it? This is the theme between these 2 players at the moment, and there's even ideas where Magnus can try to win the pawn immediately by taking the bishop and then moving the knight, and maybe we can show that one, and getting rid of the defenders of the isolated pawn. You know, black would love to get an attack going by creating some battering ram by the queen and bishop, but it's very hard to do that in this position. He's got maybe 1 tempo too slow to get any threats with the black pieces here. Yeah,
as you mentioned, this battery ram idea, retreating the bishop, and then, for example, if white were to give you an extra move, then to line up this checkmate, trying to sneak into the weakness that white has left on the dark squares. This would actually be checkmate if the queen can sneak in. But, of course, white won't allow this. If the bishop steps back in this position, white gets greedy and captures a pawn in the centre. No real way to set up this battery now, because, for example, if you step forward with the queen, we just see a trade of knights. This is actually check, and then the queens disappear. So black is just 1 move too slow. Not only has white won a pawn in this position, but white also has these dominant bishops. Look at how great they are on the 2 longest diagonals on the board, controlling everything. So I'm expecting now, in the current position that we have on the board, Magnus to just bring his bishop to this square. And a lot of pressure on this guy. Probably Pragg's idea is to challenge the bishops on this diagonal. And if I recall correctly, this is still something that we've seen earlier in the tour, maybe last season. And okay, instead, Magnus, maybe with that in mind, brings his knight forward. This is the other idea you mentioned, Simon, hitting this bishop. And if the bishop drops back, potentially trading off this black knight in order to win a pawn in the centre. So it's looking pretty good for Magnus, we've got to say right now. But Pragg has his ideas. And, OK, pressure. It's all about this guy, this pawn in the middle of the board.
Cool. Now, Praggnanandhaa, he is struggling against Magnus Carlsen, must-win situation right now. But what a tournament he is having. And remember, tomorrow, the very special chess talk that Jovanka had with Praggnanandhaa, it's a long, deep dive interview into his life, will be released on Chess24 if you click on collection. As we see Anish Giri leaving, that must mean the game with Jordan has finished. Is that a draw?
That is indeed a draw.
The 3rd draw. So if we have a winner in game 4, that will be the winner of the match. If not, tie breaks. But yeah, remember the chess talk released tomorrow with this super talented 16-year-old Praggnanandhaa. And it's only available to Chess24 premium users. And during the Esports Cup, you do get 40% off premium subscription if you use the code Esports Cup. So a great sale right there. Praggnanandhaa, is there chances for him to make that comeback in this game?
He's made it imbalanced. That's a good thing. So it's kind of imbalance of pieces. White has the 2 bishops, as we mentioned, but black has the tricky knights, and the pawn structure definitely not symmetrical anymore. So
maybe he has some small threats here as well. Potentially, let's say white, if we can show this, maybe pushes a3, wastes a move somehow. We can go for this battering ram again, and this hasn't happened, but this kind of idea is very dangerous. If white blocks that queen, you can potentially now sacrifice the rook in the middle of the board, opening things up. So there is danger for Magnus. I mean, I'm not sure this is working 100%, but it looks very scary. So there's still chances, certainly.
Yeah, and that's why Magnus may be scared of a variation like this one. In this current position, he has just traded a set of knights. Magnus is really heading or trying to force his game towards a draw if possible. Pragg is recaptured with a pawn, so no more isolated pawn in the centre. But there is, however, an isolated pawn over here on this side. So Alice, the A-pawn, isolated and lonely. Magnus, meanwhile, improving the queen. And at least now, after the black bishop and queen line up for this battery along the diagonal, he can safely block it with a pawn. That idea that Simon mentioned of rook takes pawn no longer in the air because white's queen defends this e3 square. So, yeah, great defense there from Magnus Carlsen. Also eyeing up this pawn. It's looking very safe actually now for Magnus. The more I look at it, it's hard for black to create any attack here anymore.
I have to say I don't like this position for Praggnanandhaa at all. My experience is that white will be feeling very comfortable for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned. But like Simon points out, you must always be on your guard tactically. You have to have your A game on there because there are always going to be captures and checks and potential attacks that could be coming your way. But once you navigate that,
yeah, I mean,
great chance for winning.
Black does have this lovely bishop at least, which is pointing towards the white king, and that's always going to be some threat towards white. I mean, whatever happens, black can threaten checkmate. So that's at the right time.
That's something you need to always bear in mind. So you very much, when you approach these type of positions, you don't look at it from your own point of view. You try to kind of think about what does your opponent want to do, and then you make the adequate preparations. That's how I've always dealt with this type of position.
Yeah.
And okay, it's tense and it's tough, and you often have to use up a lot of time calculating everything out, but good long-term prospects. I get very excited about long-term prospects.
Yeah, I mean, maybe black should try to move the knight into the centre now.
Yeah.
This is something, but again, more exchanges can happen then. And the danger is that Pragg obviously has to win this game as well. Draw is just not good enough. I mean, how do you beat the world champion on demand with the black pieces? Drop a mobile phone in his pocket, give it a ring, and hope he gets banned.
We've seen him lose.
Reprogram his mouse to be a bit
wonky.
Yeah,
so drunken mouse. So yeah.
No, well, one thing that we have seen is that at times he gets complacent. Okay.
We do have a move. Is it a dramatic move?
No, black just keeping a pawn on a safe square.
All right. But in the match between Jordan van Vries and Anish Giri, they have played 3 draws. Game 3 finished, and whoever wins Game 4 will be the winner. You're standing there with Anish now, right, Sverre?
Yeah, Anish came by to have some sushi here on the side, so he's picked out his food, but he's also taken a quick draw. Was that in time so you could get time to eat?
You could say so. It's quite hard to find time to eat, but actually, no, just the game went this way. I thought this was a sensible end.
Last black game that you played, you're playing a black game again now. You faced an unorthodox opening. Do you know where it comes from?
Yes, I know. It is an homage to Lawrence Trent, who did the 193 course. Yeah, there are many first moves nowadays that people can play. 93 is amongst them.
Are you expecting more of the same for the last game?
Well, I'm not going to tell you what I expect, not to give away anything to my opponent who is watching this interview with great interest.
It's a Dutch matchup here, but let's also have a little look at what Van Forest had to say after they finished their game. You're left with a white game now to try to score and win this in the regular time.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, of course. At least the match will take 4 games as well, which is not too usual for me. I've lost 2 matches in 3 games already. So I'm very happy at making such a quick draw with the black pieces.
For the last white game, you'd prepared for all of 10, 12 minutes by random chance as Lawrence Trent was walking by. Who in this area have you gotten your inspiration for the next white game?
Yeah, I think I'll turn to my second for this one. Hopefully something up his sleeve, and otherwise it's going to be tough, I think.
Thank you, Jordan. So just watch it. Johann Sebastian, he's ready to offer some brilliant insight here to Jordan van Forest before the last game.
Ooh, that's going to be a very cool game. If we have a winner, then that player will be the winner of that match. It's prestigious, 2 Dutch players, but if it is a draw, then we will head to some dramatic tie breaks and eating some sushi there, Anish Giri. What kind of, have you guys ever been at a tournament where you actually been able, there's like some very classy, nice sushi stacked up for you in between games?
It's normally a greasy kebab or some cheese roll
What kind
or
of
something.
food do you get at chess tournaments?
Cheese rolls, old stale bread. No, you can get some nice food, but I mean, you have to work your way up the ranks, I think, because when you're young, you normally, in England at least, lots of tournaments are in school halls somewhere. You might have someone catering with some very bad coffee and putting some £1 sandwiches together. But yeah, I think there's nothing amazing, not as good as this food anyway.
No.
What about you guys? If you've had any great food somewhere?
Even at FIDE events, even kind of to qualify for the World Championship cycle, we'd be lucky to get kind of water with plastic cups. I mean, that's like the maximum normally. So this is refreshing.
You get biscuits and nuts. That's my experience.
Very rarely do we get that luxury.
Biscuits
Is it the
and
tournaments
nuts.
you go to, clearly?
Yeah.
So to all tournament organizers, get some inspiration from the sushi chef here. The players are really enjoying it.
Yeah, sushi chef and last season the tour final, I really loved it when you guys had that tea person coming in, making these beautiful brews.
What about cocktail bar? Can we introduce that?
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Yeah, I'm down with that. And the player
I'll play that tournament.
Can make the chess really interesting. To see Anish shaking some cocktails after the first game, making a quick margarita for himself. So, yeah.
Actually, in our podcast with Anish released today, he did say if he had to have a drink named after him, it would be a fruity mocktail. So,
Fruity mocktail, so a non-alcoholic one.
unfortunately, he's a true professional. His body is a temple.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, we do have a couple of moves in this one. With a draw, Magnus Carlsen will be the winner of the match against Praggnanandhaa. What way is this game heading?
It's heading towards safety for Magnus.
Okay.
We did see a few moves. Black's knight did indeed leap into the centre of the board, as Simon indicated, and Magnus barely paused for thought. He whipped off the black knight with his bishop. So no more bishop pair for white, but a safer king. So black can still line up that battery at some point, the one that we've been discussing a few times. Black's queen and black's dark square bishop lining up towards the white king, but any inroads towards that white king will just be blocked off by a pawn. So still looking relatively safe. White has an easy plan as well of stacking up the rooks towards black's central pawns, some weaknesses there. And it's just hard to see any kind of clear attack. No direct path forward for Praggnanandhaa.
And whilst Praggnanandhaa is thinking about a way forwards, well, we do have some selfies. Not quite any extreme selfies.
I have to say that
Well, wait 1 second. You're not going to be disappointed.
Right.
Because these ones are with our chess pets.
OK, that's all right.
That's all right. Yeah,
Let's see
Tingley
'em.
is watching from Vienna with their dog. It's, well...
Yep. Maybe the dog's eating the internet cable there, so that old excuse.
I was
So,
talking
yeah.
to Simon about it earlier. When it comes to chess, we rarely see dogs. Chess players seem to be cat people, not dog people.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
The problem, actually, is a dog person. He
Well, he's
he
also
has
got a cat.
and a
What
dog.
about Aronian?
Aronian has
Aronian's got his
Pontic.
famous dog.
That
so
is the famous dog. But you have to agree with me, there are more cats than dogs.
I think it's if you're a chess player, you have to walk a dog, right? So if you go to a tournament for 2 weeks, it's pretty hard to walk that dog. But a cat is a bit more self-sufficient, you know?
Maybe with online chess now, there's going to be more dogs because people are more home.
Yeah. In fact, one of the best tournaments I played as a child, I mean, they used to have a dog, a Dalmatian, running loose. And, you know, sometimes you'd be playing and there would a dog would pass between your legs and I'd be like, this is the coolest thing ever.
What kind of tournaments do you play?
was
Dogs?
Oh, look at the bar. What's happening?
Yeah, this happened a couple of moves ago, actually, and black's rook has just gone offside.
Again?
Yeah,
Again, like the last game.
Just like the last game, Pragg has put his rook on a square where it's not actually doing too much. He's lined up the black queen and the black bishop. We mentioned this. The black queen's trying to sneak in to deliver a nasty check to white, but this can just be blocked, I think, by a pawn. And it's because he needs to win, Pragg.
Yeah.
It's not because he made a blunder. It's not a terrible move in general, but it's just too slow. And now I expect Magnus to push a pawn forward. You could even make an argument for white's king just running away at some point. I don't think black has enough attacking pieces, unfortunately.
And it really looks good to kind of push Freddie 2 squares forward, block the diagonal, leave the rook offside.
Maybe we can show this on the board because right now there is this threat, as mentioned, of the black queen sneaking in and giving a check, but just pushing the pawn forward looks very good. Simon, you were going to mention that black could maybe
Well,
try
yeah,
attack here.
I'd want to play this move, but I think white has a very useful move that exchanges more pieces here, is one option. But obviously, to my eyes, it looks quite scary when you get that pawn there, but Magnus has it under control.
Yeah, this bishop move kills all the fun. So you don't get distracted and capture this pawn, because then this really is a nasty check defended by the bishop, and white's king is kind of forced out into the open where it won't really survive. But instead of getting greedy here, you can block things down and just take the safe approach. This is what I'm expecting from Magnus. Just trade off the bishops once the black queen moves and complete safety. Magnus making a face there. Maybe in the current position he's thinking about something else. Maybe he's even contemplating allowing this check. That looks unnecessarily brave in this position where you only need a draw as Magnus, but you could make an argument for just ignoring it. Black's attack, after all, takes a long time to get going. You could counterattack against this black rook. And not only do you attack this black rook, but you also attack this pawn for a third time with white's rook. After all, this is just one check and maybe only a second check, and white's king does run to safety. And here, white is actually winning because the black rook under fire and the black queen under fire at the same time, double attack. Instead, Magnus going for the alternative approach, allowing the queen in. As mentioned, super brave. But if the queen does jump in, then white can simply capture this black pawn. I don't think black's attack is scary enough. White is the first one to break through. For example, a position like this with a check on the 8th rank. Black's king just as weak as white's.
Okay. It's super dramatic for Praggnanandhaa. He has to win this game. It's must win to take it to a game 4 as well. It's starting to look very good for Magnus. He needs only a draw in the game. And I guess then it's heading at least that way for him.
It's looking good. I mean, what is that black rook doing all on its own? Yeah, the real action is happening against those black pawns. Yeah, unfortunately, I think just not enough experience in this type of position for Pragg.
Yeah, I think you need to get more firepower in, don't you? And there's just not any more black pieces that can really join in the attack.
Black still had a knight, for example.
Yeah,
that would be dangerous, or even a light squared bishop. I mean, then it would be really scary. But as it stands, not enough pieces, and I think he needed to switch tack and maybe play on the defensive. But of course, that doesn't suit the match situation at all.
Yeah, I mean, I've studied these types of openings quite a lot, and this is basically what black should not try to do. Allow all these trades, allow all these exchanges, and even before black put his rook offside, it's difficult to find a plan. White's plan is so simple. You build up against black's central pawns. Look at the 2 white rooks. Easy targets for them, but for black, it's much less clear. So it feels to me as if, okay, decent opening preparation by Pragg, but not really fully exploring the middle games that arise, and maybe something to work on with his coach, Ramesh. He'll have learnt a lot, Pragg. Even if he falls to defeat in this game, he'll have learnt a lot, and yeah, he will improve and be better for this match.
What can you say about Magnus's play today?
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's just done everything right today. He's not sure, you know, just perfect play, really. Oh, look at that.
What is that face about?
Oh, that's very... I mean, maybe...
He's confused. I'm confused, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe he just thinks he's not... Well, look at that. That's... I mean, what is that? I mean, I guess he's thinking he can move the queen to that square, you said, but what's he... He's even talking to himself there.
I think he's confused. Either something's happening with the tech side, maybe computer froze, mouse froze or something, or he's just confused about Pragg's last move. And I'm mightily confused as well. The white queen can just come in. I don't really understand what this last rook move does for Pragg.
Let's maybe take a look at Pragg as well, to see his reaction after making this move. We see the bar has shot up even more as well.
Yeah, it looks like the black rook, which was already offside, has gone to a square that's not even better than it previously stood. I'm struggling to find what black wants to do. Maybe he wants to bring his black rook across to the f line to look at the white king, but it's so slow. White's queen, as we mentioned, is going after those black pawns immediately.
Yeah, I mean, he's very, very surprised, and he doesn't normally show that much emotion. I mean, like Nepo does when he was playing the World Championships, but you rarely see this from Magnus. I think what Pragg's got to do today, he's got to take a lot away from this. It's a learning experience, and the best way to learn is to play people who are better than you. And Magnus is better than him. This is how I got better. I always played tournaments where I was one of the lowest rated players. I'd lose horribly. The queen does come in now, attacking all those weak points, and eventually you start to beat the players that you'd lose to originally. But yeah, I mean, the pawns are going to start dropping here, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's like dominoes now. Everything's falling in black's position. And
yeah, rook takes pawn, and look at that. That rook is now going to venture 2 squares forward at least, and yeah, it's just going to be so problematic for black. Yeah, on the subject of learning, I mean, I was reading a book just now talking about how to deal with the mindset of competition, because, you know, the dark side of competition is that you have a winner and a loser, and often you can determine that if you lose, you're a loser, which is not the case. So the mindset it was advocating was that basically you should approach it like student and teacher. At times, both of you will be teaching each other things, and you'll be showing where the weaknesses are. And
So have you seen this Queen F6 move? This
Sorry,
have you seen just like, I totally agree with you, Vanka. But
David's eyes just went.
Yeah, I exactly the same. I was thinking Magnus won the World Championships by this brilliant Queen H6 move, and it'd be lovely to see him at some point. This is a beautiful thing to show, maybe.
Just to quickly show, I don't think it even works, actually, unfortunately.
Oh, does it not? OK. Because of G5. But it is...
very pretty.
Yes.
So white is about to crash through on this 8th rank. Black can give a check, but it's only 1 check. The white king runs away to safety, and black is reduced to taking pawns, which are irrelevant. I think Prag's actually going to resign, so let's race through this. Rook takes rook is 1 move, but after the black rook recaptures, both me and Simon here... OK, he defends with his bishop. Both me and Simon thought that white could give up the queen and go for checkmate. It doesn't quite work. The king can actually escape by pushing a pawn forward. But either way, this is the type of thing in the air. And right now, we did see the black bishop step forward, but a trade and white's rook coming forward. This is going to win the black bishop. The black bishop is pinned. Let's go back to the players. We're going to see a result. It's just game over. Black's king is the first to fall. And Pragg is getting ready to resign. Magnus taking the win any moment now.
Wow. After just being on fire, Praggnanandhaa winning 3 matches in only 3 rapid games. That streak ends today. Magnus Carlsen is about to win this match in only 3 rapid games. He put on an entertaining fight, Praggnanandhaa, but Magnus Carlsen still is the boss.
And there we go, Pragg shaking his head. Yeah. I mean, he can't be too disappointed. He's just going to look ahead. He's done great in this tournament so far. OK, his performance rating won't be 3,000 anymore, but he's still done extremely well. And Magnus has just been at his best today. You can't get too upset if you're playing the best player in the world and they're on form.
Yeah, he's showed real class today, hasn't he? And you know, he's never really been in any danger, and he might even finish by winning. Well, he's going to win, isn't he? Obviously. Yeah.
And there we go.
Oh, he's worked out the checkmate as well.
Finishing in style.
Yeah.
There's a checkmate on the e7 square after a few moves. This is really nice. Once the black king takes the white rook, I hope Pragg is going to let us see this. This is a queen check. The white bishop is now going to give a check. The black king, once it moves... OK, it's checkmate next move.
Oh, he doesn't allow it.
He doesn't allow it.
Allow the checkmate. We want to see it, but what a performance by Magnus.
What a performance. Magnus Carlsen wins this match in 3 games, and Praggnanandhaa shakes his hand.